Standing for a moment of silence. I'll explain after. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This week we lost one of our crossing guards, Ann Bogner, and she was a crossing guard for 20 years here in Maplewood, and we just wanted to take a moment of silence for her. Thank you very much. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2013 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2012, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mr. Brownlee?
Here.
Mrs. Larrier?
Here.
Mr. Leventhal? Here. Mr. Ryan?
Over here.
Mayor DeLuca.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires all meetings of public bodies be open to the public, and whereas Section 7 provides that the governing body has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire this governing body to comply with the provisions of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
Second.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mr. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 18th meeting of the Maplewood Township Committee. I'm going to run through the agenda pretty quickly because we have a lot to do this evening. First, we're going to have a proclamation for the Junior League. Are there representatives here from the Junior League? Okay. Be with you in just one moment. Okay? Thanks. And they're celebrating their 100th anniversary, so we'll have you come up when I get down there, and I'll give you the proclamation. After that, we'll have a public comment. Now, we are going to be having all the public comment around the post office going to be later in the meeting. So if anyone wants to speak about something other than the post office, we would invite you to come up under item number 6, which would be the public comment. Okay, so if you want to speak about something other than the post office redevelopment, then we're going to have you come up when I ask for public comment. After that, we're going to have 2 hearings, one on the budget of the Maplewood Village Alliance Special Improvement District, and then we'll have a vote on it, and the second on the budget of the Springfield Avenue Partnership. After that, we will have introduction of a new ordinance. This is to regulate massage businesses. Then we are going to go to item number 12, which are discussion items, and we're going to move the post office redevelopment plan up front. So when we get to item 12, that's when we're going to invite people to come up and make comments about the post office redevelopment. We're going to start that by having our planner, Paul Greigel, spend somewhere around 5 to 8 minutes doing a presentation of what the plan is, and then we'll take comments and questions. Then after we deal with everyone's comments with the post office redevelopment, we'll talk about the other 2 items for discussion. One is an area in need of redevelopment for the PSE&G site on Boyden Avenue, and the second is a Women's Club Task Force update. After that, we're going to see what time it is, because at 9 p.m. we have to adjourn our Township Committee meeting and have an alcoholic beverage control meeting. So we may adjourn the Township Committee meeting, go into our alcoholic beverage control meeting, and then after that go back and complete the rest of the items on the Township. The rest of the items on the Township Committee agenda will be item number 13, which is the consent agenda. Then we have public comment. We'll have a second public comment period. We'll have reports from departments, administrative reports, reports from elected officials. So that's where we are. I will again remind you as we go along the way as to how we're going to slot everybody in. But I would just ask, I'm going to ask if I can have the person from the Junior League meet me up here, and then anyone who would like to speak on something other than the post office redevelopment, if you would get ready to come up after I get back up here. They have this little...
Wordy.
No, it is wordy, yeah. But that's, yeah. So here's a proclamation. Whereas the Junior League of the Oranges and Short Hills is a charitable nonprofit organization of women developed as civic leaders creating demonstrable community impact, and the first junior league in the state of New Jersey, and you're the first junior league to celebrate 100 years. Congratulations.
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey,
Yes.
Of helping to improve the lives of women and children in our community. And since 1913, the Junior League of Oranges and Short Hills has supported many local organizations, including the American Red Cross, New Eyes for the Needy, the Central Volunteer Bureau, Camp Hope, the Milburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad, and many other organizations. Excuse me. And whereas the Junior League of the Oranges and Short Hills has brought support to the Maplewood community when in 1980 the league undertook a 3-year project to restore the Duran Hedden House and to develop programs for the house and park. And in 2006 it partnered with the Division of Youth and Family Services and remodeled the visitation rooms in their Maplewood office and established Junior's Closet 2, which is a store carrying children's clothes and toys. And this year, the Junior League of the Oranges and Short Hills awarded Friends of the Maplewood Library a $1,000 check to be used for the Hilton Library to create and distribute 10 child-sized backpacks for ELL students and another $1,000 contribution to Columbia High School Scholarship Fund for a female student who demonstrated a commitment to community service. Now let it be known that I, Victor DeLuca, Mayor of Maplewood, on behalf of the Township Committee, am grateful to the Junior League of the Oranges and Short Hills for their dedicated work for our community and New Jersey. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This means especially a lot to me. I've been a Maplewood resident for 11 years, and as I begin my presidency this month, it's my 20th year in the Junior League. The Junior League has been very special to me, and although our name is the Oranges and Short Hills, we obviously have been very active in Maplewood, and we've currently got 275 members in our chapter. We were the very first suburban league ever founded. There's only 10 other junior leagues that are older than us. We were the 11th league founded, and there's 293 leagues around the world, including 155,000 women. So if there's any information you would like, I'd love to sit in on the meeting for a little while, and I really appreciate all of your support, and I'm proud to be a Maplewood resident and proud to be a junior leaguer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to have our public comment period. This is the first one of the evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the Township Committee. For the record, I'm Deborah Collins, the Director of Small Business Development and Affirmative Action for the County of Essex. I'm also the county's liaison to the Township of Maplewood, and I have an announcement regarding an upcoming seminar that we are hosting on July 25th at the High Lawn Pavilion. It is free. Admission is on a first-come, first-served basis. It will take place from 9 a.m. to 11 o'clock a.m., and the topic is demystifying the RFP, or request for proposal, process. The seminar will be led by two of the county's engineers. Now, this is rare. It's hard for me to get them out of the office at all, but to have them for 2 entire hours, well, that's particularly special. They're going to address such topics as mandatory RFP documents, elements of the cost proposal, and for the first time, we will go over the evaluation process and talk about some of the things that the county looks for in the submissions that we receive. Now, while it's particularly directed to engineering and architectural services, we will talk about other kinds of professional services as well. In fact, I'm going to present a list of my pet peeves as one of the evaluators on many of our projects, so we hope that the public will turn out. It's again Thursday, July 25th, from 9 o'clock a.m. to 11 o'clock a.m. at the High Lawn Pavilion. The number to call is 973-621-2011, 973-621-2011, and I will leave copies of the flyers with the clerk's office and send an emailable copy to the business administrator's office.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Demetria Wirtz. I'm from New Jersey Hope and Healing. We offer support to communities in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. We're sponsored by the New Jersey Division of Mental Health and Addiction Services, Disaster and Terrorism Branch in partnership with the Mental Health Association, and it's funded through FEMA. My location is at the Family Service Bureau of Newark. We offer stress and anger management workshops as well as disaster preparedness workshops for children and adults, as well as individual and group crisis intervention. Everything is free, and I have a few flyers if anyone is interested.
And you leave them with the clerk's office also,
Yes.
and then we can put that information on our website.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address the Township Committee other than the post office site? Okay, so we'll close the public comment, the first public comment period. There will be one later specifically for the post office, and then we'll have one later at the end of the meeting for anything, sort of a catch-up. Let's see if we can get through these resolutions and public hearings, and then get on to the post office conversation.
Item 7, read the resolution by title. Resolution to read the Maplewood Village Alliance SID Year 2013 budget by title.
Mr. Chair, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Now we're going to have a hearing on the Maplewood Village Alliance Special Improvement District budget for 2013. The hearing date of June 18th, 2013 was published according to law, and notification of property owners was made as required by law. Is there anyone who wants to speak on the Village Alliance budget for 2013? Seeing no one, will close the hearing. And can I get a motion?
Mayor, I just would like to, Ms. Ritson, you confirm that notices were sent to all of the property owners on the list for the Alliance, is that right?
That's correct.
Chair, I move for the adoption of the resolution approving the 2013 Maplewood Village Alliance budget.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. We have a resolution on item number 9.
Yes, Mayor, it's a resolution to read the Springfield Avenue Partnership SID Year 2013 budget by title.
Chair, I move for the adoption of this resolution.
Second.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, we have a hearing now on the proposed budget for the Springfield Avenue Partnership Special Improvement District for 2013. The hearing date of June 18th, 2013 was published according to law, and notification of property owners was made as required by law. Is there anyone who wants to speak on this budget for the Springfield Avenue Partnership for 2013? And I'll beat you to it. All property owners were notified of.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. Anyone want to speak on this? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Can I get a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move for the adoption of the resolution approving the 2013 budget for the Springfield Avenue Partnership Special Improvement District.
Second.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 11, we have introduction of a new ordinance.
Ordinance number 2724-13 is an ordinance to amend ordinance 2360-06 regarding the regulation of massage businesses. This ordinance will ensure the health and safety of consumers of the Township of Maplewood.
Ms. Leventhal?
Mr. Mayor, move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on July 2nd, 2013.
Second.
Mr. Desiderio, could you remind us why we have to make these changes?
Yes, Mayor. In speaking with the health officer, we were able to determine that the state had recently passed a statute which supersedes the township's ordinance with regard to the licensing of massage practitioners. As such, the licensing by the township is no longer permitted. So what this ordinance does is it eliminates that requirement, but still requires that massage businesses be licensed and comply with certain health code violations. So the only thing that's being eliminated is the licensing of the actual practitioners themselves, which is now a state statute.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move to discussion items, and the first item for discussion is going to be the post office redevelopment plan. And I'm going to ask Paul Greigel to come up. Paul, why don't you sit here for a moment? What we're going to do, just to remind everyone, we're going to have Paul speak for somewhere around 8 minutes. I'm going to say a few words before Paul gets up, and then we will have anyone who's interested come up here, can ask questions, make comments, give us suggestions, and then we will have a dialogue and move this forward. First, I want to put into perspective where we are. The discussion of moving the post office has been a long one in Maplewood. It really goes back to 1997 when Township Committeeman Mickey Stern was on the Township Committee and had approached members of Congress about the utility of moving the mail sorting facility out of Maplewood Village, essentially a mail factory. And part of that was because there was the opinion then, and I think has continued through that time, that that property could be a higher and better use than a mail factory. And also the parking that's required to support the post office, the sorting, with all those trucks and the vehicles of the sorters, there's some of the mail carriers, there's somewhere around 25 mail carriers, that really there was an alternative that was looked for going back to 1997. In 2002, the Township Committee passed a formal resolution urging the post office to relocate the mail handling facility from the village. So this has been a topic of concern for some time. The idea was included in master plans, talked about the potential of the facility moving to another place in Maplewood. And then we became, a question of, if not the mail facility, what would go there? And for some time, we had been talking about doing a mixed-use building with retail on the first floor and residential and/or even offices on the second floor. So the way this works is that the town owns the land and leases the land to a corporation. And that corporation then leases the building to the post office. So we do not have a lease with the post office, we have a lease with a third party. And that lease runs concurrent with the lease to the post office, and it all ends November of 2013. So for at least the last 13 years, when I was mayor in 2001, we were having conversations about trying to end the lease earlier. We could never do that, and so we're now at the end of that lease. At the end of that lease, both the land, which we own already, and the building reverts to us. So we own it all after November 13th, November 2013, rather. So that's what we've done. We've given notice to the post office that we do not intend to renew the lease. I must say publicly that the post office is the hardest entity in the world to deal with. You think it's difficult to buy stamps, it's difficult to get any kind of straight answer from them. It really has been a struggle. We've made every effort to try to work with them to find space, to create special parking for them, and they just have not been receptive. And even tonight, they were supposed to come and tell us what their plans are, and they have not informed us of what their plans are, so we took them off the agenda because we just don't know what they're doing. They refuse to tell us at this point. We are, nevertheless, moving forward with working out some alternatives to continue to provide some postal services. There will be postal services in Maplewood, and where they end up sorting the mail is still a question. So that aspect of it is still an open issue, and we've invited them to the July 2nd meeting if they have firm plans that they can share with us. And so hopefully they will be able to do that in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, we've had conversations with others about the potential of what could go at the current post office site. And you may have read on Patch or heard on Maplewood, or read on Maplewood Online, or heard in just conversation that we have had conversations with King's Supermarket, and that really started in November 2012 when I received an email from a person who handles real estate for King's, asking if they could meet and begin a conversation about some possibilities of their store moving across the street. They had heard that the post office was moving out, and they approached us and said, we'd like to have that conversation. So we said, we'd like to have that conversation too, because we had always thought that it would make sense for King's to move across the street. We have difficulties now with the way in which deliveries are given to King's. King's is landlocked. King's is a small facility. It's 7,500 square feet of selling space there. They were looking to expand it. So we began having conversations. There wasn't negotiations because we're not in a position to negotiate with King's because we're not going to own the building. We're going to be in a position to work with a developer who will own the building and rent the property to King's or anyone else there. But we did want to explore with King's what was possible, and we do have confirmation from their CEO that they want to consider moving across the street. They do want to expand. This would not be a large supermarket. They're going from about 7,500 square feet to maybe 10 to 12,000 square feet of selling space, and then the rest would be storage. So this is these are the kinds of things we've been kicking around. Certainly, any negotiations won't be final until those are concluded between King's and the developer. So here we have a situation where we own the land, we're going to own the property, we own the building, we own everything. And the way in which we can dispose of property is to put it up for public bid. We do that with a lot of things. We say, the highest bidder, you get it. And in that case, whoever was the highest bidder would automatically get it, and then they would follow the zoning codes that are there now, which actually Paul will talk about, allow for the creation of a 50-foot building. Or the other alternative is to declare the area in either need of rehabilitation or redevelopment. In this instance, we went with rehabilitation. And that gives us the ability to negotiate with developers, to pick and choose who we think is the best developer for the price that we're going to get for the land, the development that they are proposing. So in order to move that process forward, we have to develop a plan. And the plan is essentially a zoning plan, and that's what's being kicked around, and that's what you're going to hear about tonight. It talks about different parts of the design. It talks about how big the place can be, how much land it can cover, and things like that. So that's what we're doing right now, is we're approving a development plan, a zoning plan. That zoning plan will be the guidelines for both the planning board and the developer to move forward. So that's where we are. We will, after this process is over, we will, on July 2nd, we will introduce that plan. It will then go to the planning board for a review on July 9th. It will come back here on July 16th for a public hearing and a final adoption. And then after that, we will then put out a request for qualifications, letters of interest to developers to come back and explain what they would propose to build there, following the design guidelines. So I'm going to, at that point, switch now to Paul Greigel. I've asked Paul to come up here. If you would tip that and face the audience and explain what the plan is. And then after that, Paul's going to sit back down here, and then we'll switch it back here so you can ask us, face us, and we will take questions, and Paul will be able to answer the questions because you will be here in addition to any questions we might have.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. And I believe I can stick to the 8-minute limit because you've covered a number of the points I was actually planning to cover.
All right.
So I can try to focus more on the plan itself. But I would like to start with a brief overview of the development context and how the plan that's being considered this evening got to this point. First of all, let's just go back to what a redevelopment plan is. As the mayor mentioned, it's development regulations. Like typical zoning, so it regulates uses that are permitted, height, intensity of development. But beyond regular zoning, it's also allowed to deal with things such as building and site design, circulation, off-site impacts, and per state law, it can include much more detailed regulations than a typical zoning ordinance may deal with. And also, probably just as important, it gives the municipality the powers to select a redeveloper and to set the exact parameters of a development process. Through traditional zoning, you can simply say what's permitted and then hope that over time something happens in accordance with that document. But just talking about the document before you this evening, it's been available on the township's website for some time. It's actually evolved. The current version, dated June 2013, has been modified multiple times since it was first introduced in April. These changes were based upon feedback from residents, from merchants, property owners, and others who are interested in the process, both individually at community meetings, such as before the Township Committee and the Planning Board, but also through groups such as the Village Alliance, the Maplewood Planning Board, and the Township Committee's Economic Development Subcommittee. The plan is also a product of 3 formal community meetings held over the past year and a half, beginning in January of 2012, a second meeting that was held in February of that year. There was a bit of time that lapsed between that and the next community meeting in April 2013, but over the time, the plan has evolved and again has been refined based on comments received from the community. So at this point, I'd like to just go through some of the main points of the plan in order, and bear with me, it's a pretty large document. I'm not going to read it verbatim, certainly, but I think I'll hit a few of the main items and be glad to answer any questions about specific topics or areas of concern. The plan begins with a general description of the project and its statutory basis, again, how Maplewood has the ability to undertake this type of project. It defines terms that are used in the plan, as well as incorporates the Maplewood Village Alliance's design guidelines definitions. That was a request directly from the Planning Board to make sure there's coordination between what the Village Alliance is doing already with regard to design standards and this particular document. It also provides some general objectives to guide redevelopment, which are then supported by the regulations of the plan. The plan talks about the development context. Just briefly, the site is 3/4 of an acre in size. It incorporates the post office building as well as 2 parking lots to the south by Village Coffee and a second parking lot to the north, the portion of Rickleton Square closest to the post office building. So it's actually It's not a very large area, but clearly it's important, located directly adjacent to the train station and right in the heart of Maplewood Village. As the mayor mentioned, it's not a new idea to redevelop the post office site, but I think the reasons should be pretty clear to anyone looking at the project objectively. The property is not just underutilized, given its location next to a train station and in a vibrant downtown, but it's poorly utilized as well. I don't think anyone planning for the property would have proposed an industrial-type use in the heart of a downtown area today. Perhaps 50-something years ago it made sense, but in this day and age, when train service to New York City is at a premium, or towns such as Maplewood that have that type of service are desirable places to live, it's a type of site you don't really come across very often, to have a development opportunity next to a station like this. So as the mayor also mentioned, the master plan for the township directly addressed some considerations for the post office property, and had some specific recommendations, such as retaining a storefront postal operation in Maplewood Village. We recognize that there's some importance to having that operation there, but to relocate the mail sorting. The master plan also talks about it being a perfect location for multifamily residential with ground floor retail. As far as the specific regulations of the plan, these really kick in on page 17 if you're following along either here or at home. First, we deal with permitted uses. The plan lists a number of various uses which are actually quite similar to those permitted under zoning today. One or more of the following are required on the ground floor, either retail, a bank, a restaurant, or a postal retail facility. So consistent with Maplewood Village today, the ground floor along the streets should have and must have retail or other types of active uses. These would be limited in size unless it's a grocery store. However, there are design regulations to make sure that even a bigger single use, such as a King's, would have to be broken up in terms of design to appear to be more in the scale of Maplewood Village. Also, permitted on upper floors would be dwelling units, offices, or perhaps even a hotel. These are all things that perhaps a redeveloper would like to incorporate into a development. We're leaving some flexibility to accommodate that. There are a number of other regulations, again, dealing with residential and other uses, but suffice to say there's a detail in there regarding the types of uses and how they have to be designed. The idea, quite simply, is to require development that has uses and characteristics that are similar to the village character today. With regard to the size of a potential building and the dimensions of setbacks, that type of thing, try to go through height as best I can. I realize it's probably difficult to follow. It certainly has been the most difficult section of the plan to come up with, and it's evolved a lot over the past couple of months. What we're currently proposing is a maximum height of 2 stories or 30 feet at any one point along Maplewood Avenue or Rickleton Square, except for the fact that Maplewood Avenue has this slope, so in some portions there may be an extra portion of a story. But the idea is to, again, maintain something similar to what you have today with 2 stories along the 2 main street frontages. There is additional height that would be permitted, but it would have to be stepped back from the top of the facade. So you wouldn't have 3 or 4 stories going straight up. You'd have to have 2 stories up along the street and then stepping back a bit. Along the southern facade, Village Coffee side, we're proposing a maximum of 3 stories and 40 feet. And again, with additional height if it's stepped back a bit. Just for context, 40 feet is roughly the height of Village Coffee, of the St. James Gate Village Barbers building, of the nail salon building on the corner of Highland Place. Those are all 3 stories, roughly 40 feet in height. We've also put in a maximum cap of 45 feet on the site. So even if you have stepped back portions of the building, it would be no higher than 45 feet measured from its lowest point to the highest point. This is important, again, given the site has a slope to it. Again, as the mayor mentioned, the existing zoning currently allows 50-foot tall buildings. So the reality is if there's no redevelopment plan, a developer could come in and redevelop the site in accordance with design regulations that allow for a taller building with similar types of uses. Just to wrap up on dimensions, the plan does not have setbacks required from the streets. Instead, it requires large sidewalks, 11 to 15 feet in width. So you'd have a pedestrian-friendly environment along Maplewood Avenue and Rickleton Square. We're requiring a large setback from the southern property line to allow for an area where there'd be a connection from the southern pedestrian tunnel of the train station through to Maplewood Avenue. Lastly, there'd be a setback along the train tracks where a path would be required along that area. There's some debate and discussion about that exact design of the path at some of the prior meetings, but essentially to have some space to connect from the existing pedestrian path to the south through to Rickleton Square. Just to wrap up on building and site design, the plan has a lot of detail. I won't get into it, but some main points. Building mass is intended to be broken up through design techniques, through various types of materials. These are listed in the plan. We have updated that section based directly on public comment from some architects and others who came to prior community meetings. High-quality materials are required, sustainable designs required. In terms of parking and loading, just some main points on this. The first overall goal is to maintain the existing amount of public parking on the site. So there's public parking there in the coffee lot today. The number that's in there would have to remain. That cannot go away. In addition, more parking would need to be provided for a residential space and for commercial space. But other than one space per unit of residential, it could be provided off-site through permits, through payment to the township, through other measures. So perhaps it could be combined with some of the other efforts going on, such as the Women's Club or the Merchant Parking Permit Program. Lastly, there's some administrative provisions. I won't go through all of those, but one notable one is that the plan now requires design approval by the Maplewood Village Alliance before the project that's proposed goes to the planning board. This is a big difference from a typical development in Maplewood Village, where the Village Alliance sees the project after the planning board has spoken, has given approval. We are requiring that it goes the other way, that the Village Alliance, the merchants, the big stakeholders in the downtown area have a say first. That, in a sense, is the Cliff Notes version of the plan. I think I've hit all of the main points. Just a few last things before concluding. The mayor touched on one point I wanted to make about why redevelopment. There are certain benefits that accrue to the township through redevelopment. I won't repeat all of those. Both Maplewood and other communities have utilized redevelopment powers in both downtown areas near train stations. So in Maplewood we have the Station House, you've got projects on Springfield Avenue and on Burnett that are redevelopment projects. If you look around South Orange, Montclair, Cranford, a lot of other towns are using a similar tool to redevelop their downtowns, their station areas. Just to wrap up on the comparison to existing zoning, as we mentioned, 50-foot tall buildings are permitted today. A lot of the same type of uses are permitted today. Greater building and impervious coverage is permitted today. The RB zone, which is what regulates development in downtown Maplewood, is a more generous to development in terms of what it allows. So what we're proposing is something that has more strict requirements that are more in tune with what we've heard at community meetings for regulating development on this particular site. So I believe in closing that what we're proposing addresses the established goals for redeveloping this property. It responds to community input to date and also addresses market realities. We've heard a lot of ideas that would be wonderful if they could be built in terms of financing or a market for them, but the reality is, given the location, given the way the development market works, what's allowed for in this plan makes the most sense from a realistic development point of view. And I think that the currently proposed plan would allow for appropriate development to further the township's objectives.
Mr. Greigel, if the developer is not able to negotiate a deal with King's to take the first floor, does the plan allow for an alternative?
Yes. The plan, again, does not speak directly to King's or any other supermarket or grocery store being placed in the redevelopment project. It does mention that the master plan does recommend maintaining King's in the village, but the permitted and required uses are retail on the ground floor, restaurants, those types of things. So if a redeveloper doesn't want King's, if King's doesn't come, for whatever reason, there are other uses that are permitted to be located on the ground floor. And again, the design standards require breaking up the building to make it look more like a storefront, a 30-foot wide storefront or less along the Maplewood Avenue and Rickleton Square frontages.
And the total number of apartments that are allowed are 25?
That's correct. That's one change from, another one of the many changes from the prior plan where we're dealing with apartment sizes. We've just put an absolute cap on the number of apartments that be permitted.
Anybody on the Township Committee have a question for Mr. Greigel?
I do. Would you go over the parking again?
Sure. Okay, the parking includes three main components. One being the public parking, as I mentioned, is simply to maintain or improve the number of public spaces, so you don't lose parking for people coming to shop, that type of thing. The second one deals with residential uses. What we're recommending in this plan is a minimum of 1 space per unit, maximum of 1.5. That's lower than you would typically find in a suburban, apartment complex. But because of this site's location, we think it's an appropriate mix. And to be realistic, it requires at least 1 space per unit on site. So that would most likely be in a garage under the building or some other type of lot. The last section is non-residential parking. So for retail uses, restaurants, et cetera, 1 space for every 400 square feet of floor area. That's, again, as I discussed at the Township Committee, I think a couple weeks ago. It requires fewer spaces than you would for a typical suburban development, but it makes sense in a downtown setting. And again, these spaces could be met and probably would be met off-site through techniques such as permits, through payment to the township, through utilizing other programs.
I think it's also helpful to observe that any parking restrictions that appear in this plan are more restrictive than the existing parking restrictions for commercial uses in the zone. Because right now, there are no parking restrictions at all for any commercial uses in the zone.
That's correct. It was in my notes here. In the interest of time, I didn't mention that, but yes, right now, today, if you build a building from scratch in Maplewood Village, no parking's required. So certainly would have a lot less parking if that would happen.
So would these be new spaces?
The intention would be, again, we'll have to see what redevelopers prospectively propose, but that would be to most likely construct something underneath the building in a structure.
Part of it.
For the on-site spaces. Again, given the size of the site, it'd be really hard to provide a new, surface parking lot right in Maplewood Village. The plan discourages that, in fact. But most likely structured, hidden within the building for the residential portion, and the remainder, whether it's through reconfiguring adjacent sites, dealing with the township to utilize part of the women's club or any other, option that's out there, those spaces would be either new or dedicated to this development.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Greigel. Can you take a seat here, please?
Thank you.
Mr. Manning, could you switch that so it faces us? Okay, now we're going to open the floor to anyone who has questions or comments about the plan or any suggestions. All we ask you to do is come up and give us your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is John Harvey, 8 Inwood Place, also a member of Engage Maplewood. First of all, I want to say thank you. I think having the presentation, frankly, last Wednesday night, I didn't think it was possible, so I appreciate you taking the time and sharing some of that information. It's certainly a step in the right direction. And Marlon, I know last meeting, you asked Ruth a question about how do you like to get information. I understand you play a key role in the communications work behind this. And hopefully you'll hear from some of the other people here. Our role in Engage Maplewood, by the way, is to get people energized about the decision-making process and civic discourse within Maplewood, and that's our ongoing purpose. And I think clearly having the presentation was a great step, and certainly I think you'll see more people here than you normally see at a town council meeting, so hopefully we're finding some common ground. It's a first step. The answer to the question, Marlon, as it relates to how do we like to get information and how is it valuable to get information, is not a development plan on the website. There needs to be more proactive information, regardless of who comes, and conversation to highlight the points. And Paul, that was terrific. I would make the point, though, if I asked 5 people to draw a mass and elevation map of what this building is going to look like, we'd have 5 different variations of that. So part of our request last week, and I still requested, I heard Vic's answer last week, but I didn't hear the other town council members, is with such a critical piece of property and with visuals ruling as it relates to development projects, why don't we have a height and mass model for the post office that people can see how it looks, see what it is, touch it and feel it? And I know we did it for the police department, and it's still beyond me as to why we're not doing it on this particular project. And again, from the development plan, it's a lot of numbers, but it sure doesn't show us what it looks like. I have a couple more questions, but I'll hold off to see if anybody else has questions. Thanks.
Anyone else have any comments or questions?
My name is Ruth Ross.
Pull that down to you.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you.
My name is Ruth Ross. I also want to kind of stress my address is 169 Maplewood Avenue. Means I live in a corner house, the corner of Maplewood Avenue and Highland Place. I've lived in Maplewood probably something like 30 years. And I've lived in 2 different addresses on Maplewood Avenue, so I feel very connected to the village. And I will say this, since I live in an apartment, I do have some concerns as to, gee, I wonder what will happen to my rent when my lease is up and this development is going to have an effect. Well, that's a kind of a specious sort of theoretical question. The question that I did have, though, is, it wasn't clear to me, are the planners, the planning committee, the developer, are these people known? Are they known and named? God, I guess I have to get a cell phone like that, too. Mine is not very...
Like, that's why they invented new phones.
Yeah. Although I'd have to... So that wasn't clear to me. There's a lot of talk about the planning and the developers and this and that. So it wasn't clear to me whether this organization outfit is known, has been decided, has been nominated, and of course, indeed, how that or who they are will affect, the development of the plan. And obviously I think I've been to these meetings before. I do have some concerns about the moving of the post office. And the final thing is, and this is just a kind of I have a 2007 Beetle, so that driving and parking in Maplewood, in the village, in the surrounding roads, is an issue and a problem. And it occurs to me that any addition of housing like this would just multiply and even exponentially add to some of the parking, driving problems in the village. And that is, I think, another realistic concern of mine.
Ms. Ross, may I ask you a question about the question you asked us? Because I want to make sure I understand what information you're looking for. You said you asked if the planner was known.
The developer, you're
Oh, the
talking
developer,
about
okay.
the developer. I shouldn't have said planner. There's been talk of the developer.
Okay.
And has this organization outfit been named? And because that to me would be, give us, I think, information about, well, what, some of what we can expect.
I wanted to make sure I understood your question.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Well, let me just answer that, just make sure that we are clear about that. The answer is no, the developer is not known yet.
And has one been nominated, or
No.
are there? Okay.
The way it works is that once we have the plan developed and approved, at that point, and only after that point, can we go out and request proposals, or request who's interested.
Okay.
And what we think is there'll be a robust response.
I'm sure there will be.
And what that will be is we will, in that request, we will ask for the developer's track record, the architect's track record, the engineer's track record. We'll ask for sites where they have built these things before. And then we'll go through about 90 days of having conversations with these developers, doing our due diligence before we select someone who we want to
Will there be
designate.
public meetings about some of this information as well?
Some of it will not be public because these developers will be
Yeah,
competing with one
no, I
another.
can understand
You know, we
that.
have price issues, but once we get to the point where we've designated a developer, what we call is we select a, not preferred developer, and then at that point, it'll be public and begin the process of their meeting, starting to meet with the Maplewood Village Alliance Design Review Committee. And start that process and have those conversations so that the Village Alliance, the design people, and anyone else who they bring onto that team would have the ability to start having those conversations with the developer.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Township Committee, Mr. Desiderio, nice to see you again. How are you? I'm Felice Londa. I live at 67 Woodland Road. I've been very interested in what you're doing with the post office, and it all sounds wonderful to me. The only problem that I have is the parking, which we have problem in Maplewood Village anyway with the parking. But when you say that you only require one parking place for 45 units, I think it's likely that you might very well have 2 cars for every unit. And if the concept is to permit parking at the Women's Club, while the Women's Club is currently, has a variance to permit private parties, when there isn't sufficient parking in the Women's Club parking lot, I believe there are 55 parking places at the Women's Club. You could conceivably have 35, 40, 45 parking permits for the apartments to park at the Women's Club. That would give you 13 spaces for a catered party. So unless you're not planning to use the Women's Club as a public catering center, which would please a lot of us in this room, I am concerned that what you've done now is so intensified the parking problem that we have. And I would just like to point out that right now, St. George Church is doing private parties on a regular basis. They have almost no parking, and people park all the way down the street on Woodland, which is a very narrow and gorgeous street. It winds, it's beautiful, but when there's parking on one side, you very often, when there are 2 cars, you have to pull into someone's driveway in order to get past. So I would like to hear how you plan to address the use of this parking lot for the Women's Club for parking purposes for what is now the post office. And thank you for listening.
Let me just answer. There are going to be 25 apartments, or up to 25 apartments.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I heard 45.
25, and there has to be at least 1 to 1.5 parking spaces per unit. So
Okay.
every unit will have at least 1 space. And what we've found is in transit oriented development, which is this kind, people generally have 1 car because they walk to the train. So we think that they'll be able to at least provide 25 to 30 spaces in the building, and that will be for the residents.
And then, if you permit parking for any overflow,
That will be...
once again, we have...
Well, that will be, the permit parking will be for the workers. It'll be daytime parking.
Well, it's very optimistic of you. I don't know if it makes a lot of sense to me, but what I see is if you're going to permit overnight parking or evening parking or perhaps weekend parking in the Women's Club, you're going to have a significant parking problem.
Well, right now, we allow overnight parking in 3 municipal lots, including Highland. And those folks can go in overnight, and they have to leave in the morning. And anything that we would do at the Women's Club, which we're going to vote on tonight, we're talking about a maximum of 10 overnight parking. These would be for residents. So we're not going to put everybody in there and take every spot.
Okay. And now the Women's Club will have 45 spaces.
No, those people have to get out. Those are overnight parking spaces. So they have to get out in the morning and come in at night.
Okay, and so if a party is on a Saturday night, then overnight parking would be in the Women's Club, right?
Overnight parking could be at the Highland lot.
Okay.
I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, we don't have a big demand right now for the overnight parking in the Highland lot.
Okay.
So we don't think there's going to be a big demand, and we'll see what happens.
I guess we will. Thank you very much for listening.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? Hi.
Julie Martini, hi. I live at 12 Briarcliff Court. I just have some quick questions, and
Can you speak a little, Mrs. Martini, can you speak a little louder?
Sure, I'll try. I just have some quick questions. The post office site today generates revenue for the town of Maplewood? It does. And when everything changes, it will still generate revenue?
Correct.
Okay.
Just to give you what it doesn't pay property tax. There's a rental fee that we
Okay.
get.
All right. Is it safe to say that that revenue stream will go up?
Yes.
If it's, okay, that would be terrific. When might you discuss the financials of it, of the plan, or have you?
The financials, the financial aspect will be the purchase price, and then the assessed value. So we won't know until we get the purchase price.
No, what I mean is how much it will cost the township, if anything, to do this plan.
The only thing that we're paying now is the planner.
Okay.
So we don't expect to put any money out. We expect
Okay.
the demolition to be covered by the owner,
developer.
the developer. We expect a sale price, and we expect property taxes.
Because you're going to sell the land rather than rent it?
Yeah.
Okay. But it'll still generate revenue for the township, how?
Property taxes.
Property tax.
Property taxes, okay, the same as all of us. And my last question is, will you have anyone from the community on your RFP process to interview any of the developers? Is that
No.
possible? No? Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Let me just, we have received a lot of input from folks on what we might want to put in the RFP, so we're going to be taking that input, and we got information. There's a group of architectural professionals that have given us some input. Maplewood Village Alliance has given us some input, and we're going to put that in the RFP. The way this works is you have to have a redevelopment authority that handles this, because it's a redevelopment area, and that is the Township Committee, and it's just our responsibility, so we'll be the ones doing the negotiation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Victor Gallo. I live at 121 Maplewood Avenue, and I've got some suggestions, some specific suggestions relating to aesthetics of the new building. My comments relate to the aesthetics, the specifications in the proposed draft, and I had three specific suggestions. More or less based on the police station development and maybe ways that this draft could address issues that I saw in the police station, I'm seeing in the police station building that I'm not liking. The first is with respect to building materials. I think on page 21 of the proposed draft, the document suggests that building materials should be consistent with other buildings in the town. It talks about brick, it talks about stones and terracotta. It does not make those materials mandatory, And I think it would be an improvement to make these materials and maybe other materials, maybe list some other acceptable materials, but make them mandatory so that the developer can't use some other type of material. I understand that the special improvement district regulations that section is based on are also not mandatory, but I think for this site, given the importance of it, that the facade material should be made mandatory, and that the percentage of the building materials should be specified, as opposed to I believe the plan talks about primary building materials and then accents, and if we had a sort of a minimum percentage of what needed to be the primary building material, like a brick, that it needed to cover X percentage of the building facade, taking out windows. I think that would give us more control over what the building would look like. The second.
Mr. Gallo, just so we could close this one, on page 21, under second sentence, under architectural style, it says, however, new buildings shall follow the traditional early blah, 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 be compatible, follow the existing architectural vocabulary, particularly in terms of orientation, massing, articulation, and building materials.
Right, and then it says the predominant material is masonry, usually brick, but including stone and terracotta.
Okay.
And what I would suggest is making that is a shall be.
Mayor, if I may, just briefly on this point, I apologize, it's a bit confusing that there's two sections dealing with building materials.
Okay.
Page 22 also has a building materials section, where I believe the gentleman made reference to the primary and accent materials. So that does mandate brick, stone, and stucco as primary permitted building materials, and then list the other options for accent materials, and also list what's not permitted, such as synthetic stucco, such as vinyl siding and vinyl clad windows. But I think that's a good point to try to clarify the percentages or give a little more direction as to what primary means.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the same point on page 22, it says primary permitted building materials shall include brick, stone, and stucco. And the shall include is I mean, it's the include that's in my view is a problem. It should just say that it shall be brick, stone, or stucco.
Okay. All right, we'll have our planner change it.
And the second thing is window installations. I understand that there are there's something in here that says that you can't have any kind of plastic on the facade of the building, and that's good, and that's a good change. I believe Mr. Gragel also made a change saying that there couldn't be any exhaust fans or anything right on the facade.
Because you made that point at the last meeting.
I think that's a good change. But on the windows, when you look around Maplewood Village, you don't have these cheap-looking windows because they're old buildings. The window pane, there's window panes. I don't know whether they're called mullions. I don't know what the technical term, architectural term is, but they stick out from the window pane, and it looks a lot better than these newer modern windows where the dividers are in the pane and it just looks cheap. So my suggestion is that we specify that at least for the second floor and up windows, that there be some consistency in the window grids, and that the dividers be on the exterior pane, not those cheap inserts on the inside of the pane.
Do you have that, Mr. Greigel?
I'm going to add, yes, I have it. I have the note, yes.
You know what he's talking about?
Yes, I do,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
I was just
Good.
scrolling my notes here.
Okay.
Yes.
And your third point, Mr.
And the other thing is, third point is balconies. I don't know if this is addressed in the plan. I know there's a section on balconies in this plan, but when you look at the police the new site on Dunnell Road, the balconies that I don't even know if they're technically balconies, but the railings that they've inserted on the outside of the building are not balconies. And I don't know how to address that, but I think aesthetically that if we could address those sort of fake balconies that are just sort of nailed to the side of the building and don't look good, and somehow make sure that doesn't happen here, that would be a good thing.
I actually think there's a term for, isn't it French balcony or something?
For Juliet balconies.
Juliet.
the term
It's
I've heard.
the doors open up, so you have to have something so you don't fall out.
Right,
so.
right.
And now, I don't know what do we have here for the balconies? Okay,
Yeah, so like, I don't even know if what I'm talking about is technically
it's
about.
not going to happen.
Yeah. The only other change is that it may be a good idea on, I think it's on page 12 and 14, where we say, particularly on page 12, where it says that the redevelopment plan shall supersede all provisions of the zoning and development regulations. And then the next sentence says, in all situations where zoning issues are not specifically addressed, the zoning and development regulations shall, however, remain in effect. And that, I mean, I find that confusing. I don't know what this is intended to do, and if it needs to say this, but I would just suggest some mechanism or some sentence be added to deal with conflicts between the zoning code and this plan, and how those conflicts can be addressed. And put the onus on the developer. If the developer doesn't call it out in the plan, I think there's a provision in here where they're required to say that they're going to deviate. If they don't call it out as a conflict, and they're just, I don't know, the conflict isn't obvious, then it's up to the planning board or the town board to make the determination.
Yeah.
of what it was.
We do that. We have our engineer, I mean, they have to come in any deviation, they have to apply and advertise the variance, the deviation. And then our engineer goes over it to match what's being proposed with both this set of zoning codes and the underlying zoning codes to make sure that it's meeting one or the other.
But is this clause actually to cover the case where there actually isn't a conflict, but there may be, it's almost like a stopgap, so that there's something governing?
Exactly.
I think it's almost the opposite, where there's not a conflict, you know, but the developer could do something, but there isn't actually something preventing him in the redevelopment agreement, so therefore that at least falls back on the current zoning regulations to do that. At least that's how I'm interpreting it.
Correct. The intention is, the document's 40-something pages now. If we want to cover every possible scenario, it'd be, the size of the actual zoning ordinance. So some things we've deferred, such as signage, to the existing regulations. So that's common language I put in plans of this type, but I understand the concern, and we can.
Yeah, it just reads to me like the zoning ordinance doesn't apply, and if that's not the case.
No, it's not the case.
Yeah, okay.
It's where,
That's
yeah,
fair point.
Okay.
it's like
So if that could, just a word or so could be changed to clarify that, would be.
And there is just the ordinary process is a very detailed review of, been on the planning board for a while. It's
Right.
not unusual for the engineer that analyzes people's plans to come back and say, you requested this variance, but in fact what you're doing also requires this additional permission. So there's a lot of different checks to make sure that things don't slip through.
Thank you.
That's all.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Good evening. My name is Inda Sexer. I live on Euclid Avenue, and I am a partner in the firm of Candor Sexer Architectural Partnership, which is a practice in Maplewood and Morristown, New Jersey. I have a couple of comments. Obviously, you all are much better students of this plan than I am, but a number of things pop out at me. The first one is the plan requires a percentage of open space within whatever's developed here. Open space usually implies an outdoor space, and I think that's what this means. Maplewood Village does not have any place in cold weather that's considered a public space. So if you want to have a cup of coffee and talk to someone, you have to go to a restaurant. I would like to suggest that you expand the idea of open space to some kind of a winter garden type space within the developed area. Secondly, regarding the plan requires LEED certification. In one paragraph, you talk about meeting the concepts, meeting the requirements of LEED. In the next paragraph, you talk about requiring certification of LEED, and there's a difference between the two.
What page is that on? I'm sorry.
Sorry?
What page is that on?
I don't know.
26, thank you.
Okay. There are numerous systems in terms of sustainability, and LEED is one of them. It's kind of a catchword like Kleenex at this point, and it's the most well-known one. There are I would cite two buildings for you guys to look at, the New York Times building in Manhattan and the Bank of America building in Manhattan. The reason I point those out is that one building, being the Times building, chose to meet the requirements of LEED without applying for certification. The Bank of America building went for platinum certification. The difference is, aside from some politics, LEED certification is very expensive. Some entities have chosen to take the money they would spend on LEED and actually put it into the building. In fact, there's a major restoration going on at the United Nations, and they're following the requirements of LEED but not doing LEED, so it's something you might want to consider. Over time, including the development of Station House, you guys have always referred to the transit village concept. From where I sit in architectural practice, it's really an urban concept, and Maplewood Village, being a village, is very unusual. It's not monumental, and we really have to be careful how we use that term and what we do here. So increasing a huge amount of residential development, like has happened on the other side of the train tracks on the station side, can be overwhelming to the village. And I won't expand on that because a number of people have even talked about the parking concepts. In the plan, you talk about average grade and in relation to the height of the building, and you say 10 feet intervals along the foundation of the building. You don't say whether you're talking about the existing site or the proposed site, and there can be a tremendous difference in what the average grade is on a new or a regraded site. So you might want to look into how you want to define that more clearly.
You have that, Mr. Weigel?
Yes, that language actually essentially mirrors the existing zoning, but I understand the concern.
No, this is-
You know, it's a fair point to try to clarify that for the purpose of this plan.
There's been a lot of talk about King's Supermarket moving across the street in a larger space. My opinion is that even though you say it won't be a huge supermarket, it's going to be a much larger supermarket, and I think the scale of it as a first floor facade is probably too large for Maplewood Village. Even if you do break up the facade, it'll be very obvious that it's all a supermarket. I would like to suggest, as I've actually suggested to you, Mayor DeLuca, before, that you talk about King's going into the lower level, which is the area that faces, that open area on the downslope side that faces the Village Coffee Shop. They could have a large facade there, very good entry. You could have sort of an LA to the train station and really make it work. And above that, you could have smaller retail spaces or offices or whatever it's going to be, more in this scale and keeping of Maplewood. In your language and in terms of hiring a developer for this site, I would like to suggest that part of your requirement is that that developer work with an architect to develop the site and not just have it come out of the house of the developer. And you may want to put some language in there so that the township will have some control on some level of who that architect is. Finally, many of us, and I hate to be harsh, but many of us feel that Station House is somewhat of a fiasco in terms of the quality of the building, the massing, the materials. It's very disappointing, and here we are with virtually the same township committee making a plan for another new building in Maplewood. I think you have to be very careful what you do here. I think you have to have some, I know you're involving the Village Alliance, you may want to involve a larger committee. Got more architects per square mile in Maplewood than in almost any other town in the tri-state area, because Maplewood is so beautiful that architects buy houses here, including myself. You may want to include and invite some local architects to be part of that review committee to make sure you get something of a better quality than we're seeing at Station House. Thank you for your time.
I just want to make 2 points. That when we talk to a developer, part of the evaluation will be the team. So we want to know who the architect is, what the architect has done. So that'll all, not just the developer, but also the architect.
There can be a lot of difference between a developer's in-house architectural
understand.
team and an outside architect as part of the team.
Right.
That's my point.
No, we understand, and I think, well, we'll see. I mean, we don't know who's going to come back, but, and the other part of, we have spoken to the Village Alliance, and they're aware that we've encouraged, this is what we've said, we've encouraged the design committee to take stock of their current composition and seek other volunteers with particular expertise as needed. So we have said to the Village Alliance that there are people here who have an interest and expertise, and we hope, and we would like them to tap that
Good, that's a
in their
great start.
review.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Hi, good evening. My name is Krista Heyer, and I've lived in Maplewood since 1978. I have Mona Lisa framing in the Maplewood Village, and I actually live in the village at 100A Baker Street. I'm here tonight just to at least emerge and to speak. I'm only speaking for myself, but I'm concerned about the construction. You know, I rely on people to be able to get down to the village and park and bring their art in and get it framed, and it's always been a challenge since I've been in business in the village for about 10 years now. And, you know, this is a big build, and I'm concerned about how they're going to orchestrate all of the materials that have been discussed tonight, how they're going to get down to the village, because we have so much food that has to come in every day, trucks, garbage trucks. I know, are they going to be working on the weekends? I live down there, the noise. But really, primarily is how are you going to orchestrate all of this hustle and bustle of everyday business on top of this construction project?
One of the things that we will be doing is in the evaluation of the developer, we'll be looking for similar locations where they have done work, and then evaluating how well they did. We'll be talking to town officials and others. The other thing is we do have in the plan a requirement for netting and dust reduction and things like that. And third, we're going to be looking at sites that we currently have under control or can put under our control. For example, the pool parking lot. We can do as much staging there of materials and equipment. We'll be talking to the country club to see what we can do there, because it'll be, some of this work will be in their soft season, and we'll be looking at other possibilities to get as little impact as we can. But there's going to be an impact because this is a building. There's going to be demolition, there's going to be trucks coming in and out. We do recognize that people do live down there, and so we want to make sure that, you know, this is not like a paving job you do at night. This is something that we're going to have to work together to make sure everybody's interest is taken care of. We're well aware of it. One thing for sure is, even though the post office is scheduled to leave in November, we're not doing anything for the holiday season. That building will stay there, and we will. We're going to have a new rule here tonight about phones. I'm almost embarrassed. I'm going to put mine on silent here in case somebody calls me here. But we're going to make sure that nothing happens during the holiday season, so that even if the building is empty, we'll figure out some way of making it look better. But you know, it'll be after the new year before any work gets started, and we'll have some plan. We're going to, but I don't want to say it's going to be easy. It's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough. And just on a personal note, and just nostalgia, you know, I used to ride my bike through the Maplewood Village. And there's this old photo that Bill, the pet store, used to sell, and it's a shot actually taken down the street. You know, it's that from the 50s. Yeah. And it's going to change. And I guess just for me, like, it's my village, and the level of permanency here is, it's a little, I'm insecure about it. I will be honest with you. I don't know if it's going to better the quality of Maplewood or even better the quality of people's lives. I think every decision should be rooted in that fundamental. I understand that the tax revenue and all that, and, you know, this is why you're here, to assess those those ideas and put them in place and hope that you end up with the right outcome. But, you know, it's, we're all in this together. And I've dedicated my life to having that business in the Maplewood Village. I love serving the community in which I live. I absolutely love what I do. And I love being able to meet my clients every day and just change a little bit of their life. And I want to keep doing that for as long as it'll let me. So I'm just here to share with you. I'm here, and I'm a team player. But we have to be able to keep that business going. Everybody down there, everyone that has a business in Maplewood, that's all we do. We just dedicate our lives down there, morning, noon, and night, 7 days a week. And I just wanted to share that with you tonight, and thank you for letting us come here tonight.
Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Mayor,
Hi.
Town Council.
Huh?
My name is John Dilly, and my wife and I have the Bee and Thistle Antique Shop in town. Last November, we passed our 40th year in the village. So we've been around for a while, and we've seen a lot of changes in Maplewood Village. It used to be a retail powerhouse, and now it's turned into a service location. I don't know whose fault that was or whatever, but when we bought our house from the McClintocks, who started the flower shop on Baker, Ruth McClintock came up to me and said, the only thing you have to leave Maplewood Village to buy are sheets for your bed. And that's what it was. It was a retail powerhouse. It was a retail destination. And now it's really a food court. And that really bothers me. Having had our business for 40 years, I could go on, but the real thing is business continuity during this project. I mean, everybody that comes up here in one way or shape or form mentions parking. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the last time they did a parking study in Maplewood, it was revealed that 30% of the parking spaces that would be used by people coming to shop in Maplewood were taken up by merchants. That's just unacceptable. And I believe that with this, I don't know what you want to call it, but this project that's going to hit the center, I think we really got to get serious about parking, and we've got to make accommodations for people to get into the village to shop. The merchants have got to be, how do you say this, forced to move out and go to these parking spaces that have been allocated around the village. I mean, we live on Baker Street, and we also work on Baker Street. And I know by talking to the various people that there are rules relaxed for merchants to park in the Baker Street lot and also on Baker Street. People are not allowed to park on Baker Street for more than 2 hours, regardless of whether you play musical chairs with your cars and move from one spot to the other. You're not allowed to park on Baker Street or in the lot on Baker Street for more than 2 hours. And I see it happen every day. People troop out of the various businesses around there, and they all stand around, and one takes the other's lot or spot and so forth, and they play musical chairs, and they don't get tickets. So I think it's ticket time. And I think we really got to get serious about allowing people to get into Maplewood during this upcoming project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, John Harvey again, 8 Inwood Place, Engage Maplewood. It's clear from the development plan, the conversation, that even with the plan, you have some variation in use and configuration. And Vic, you alluded to some of the criteria that might be used, who's the team and stuff. Do you know now, and if not, when will the criteria be available for selecting the developer? What would be the choice between 3 developers? What are you looking for?
We are in the process of preparing the requests for qualifications and letters of interest. review process will be described in there. We haven't finished that yet because we're focused on this, so that's the next project. So we'll be discussing that in July.
What will be the mechanism for resident and merchant input along the way? And I didn't think of Krista's, I mean, I've thought of Krista's point, but even during the process of construction, what is the method to continue to get merchant and resident feedback, both on, the decisioning as well as any issues during the construction and things like that? And I know, Marla, maybe that's a question for you with the communication role.
What strikes me is that the Maplewood Village Alliance, which represents the merchants in the area, would presumably be, I'm looking at Mr. Rand in the back there, would be a mechanism for soliciting the merchant input, since essentially that's what that organization is.
If I could just address that to that specific point, if there is a problem that happens during construction, if as Mr. Dilly said, there's a certain accommodation that's been made that isn't working, or there's a problem that develops, I'm confident that we'll all find out about it really quickly.
Well, there's that too.
And that we'll be able to address it really quickly, because nobody's shy about that sort of thing. So I'm honestly not enormously concerned about working through problems of the logistics of the actual construction, because everybody's going to see what's going on, everybody's going to be aware of what the plan is and the accommodations are, and if a problem comes up as they've been worked out, we'll all get information about that very quickly.
True.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
just
just
the nature
guessing.
of the businesses in the village and the way folks are.
I'm also looking at it just from and I know you like your word proactive standpoint, if you would, that the Village Alliance, again, being the merchants who are in the area now, might even have an opportunity to give suggestions as the process is getting underway for ways in which they may be able to make those types of accommodations. So there's both the proactive and the reactive aspects of it.
Yeah, and I know this isn't a Village Alliance meeting, but I just think, Julie, we need to figure out how to make that connection, because there are 40 merchants that signed a petition that said, we'd love to see these things, yet that never made it out of a Village Alliance meeting, just as an example. It's just the way it is. So, I think we just need to find methods for connecting and making sure the voice of the village is absolutely fresh and heard and understood. So, and we can figure that out.
Just one other thing. The town is responsible to issue the permits, and the town is responsible to monitor the permits. So if there is an issue with a developer or subcontractor not fulfilling its responsibility, then our building department will shut them down. We did that at the station house.
Great, thank you. Last question for me is, for a long time, Maplewood has had a focus on the environment, and it's something that's important to a lot of people here. I'm not sure if this is, I have a question for Paul, but from the town council, when you look at the plan, what would you highlight as the 2 or 3, cutting-edge environmental features of this particular building? Because it's an incredible opportunity. And I'd ask you, as a planner and somebody that does this, if you had your druthers, what would be the one recommendation you'd make to the town from an environmental standpoint?
Wow, that's some question. It's a good question. First of all, from an environmental point of view, I think locating development adjacent to transit and within walking distance of services is about the smartest type of growth there is. As a planner, as I said before, it's very difficult to find sites that are as well situated as this property. That said, the plan does require things different than normal development, such as reduced parking, to try to discourage people from owning cars who live here. The idea in transit-oriented projects, and there are numbers that bear this out, that people do not own as many cars, do not drive as much when they live in walking distance of train stations, and particularly within walking distance of shops and services. So I think that's one key aspect. The other ones that we're requiring in the plan include bicycle facilities, both indoor and outdoor. So to have lockers and storage, whether it's for residents or employees of businesses, are required. Outdoor bike racks to try to encourage people to bike to the site, making it pedestrian friendly. So really everything that's included in the plan, in in my humble opinion, is geared towards trying to be consistent with the walkable character of Maplewood Village, but also with the, the progressive, environmentally friendly nature of Maplewood.
Some of those, I would say, are given. The building's located where it's located, and Maplewood has a history of bike racks and stuff. I was talking more as far as construction with sustainable
Well,
energy.
LEED certification.
I'm sorry?
The LEED certification will require Energy Star appliances. It could deal with the demolition of the building, what you do with the building, how you treat the stone that you're going to tear down. Could be water retention issues. So those are things. We are including a bike path behind the building. So those are all the things. The three bike racks actually are the highest number that we've required of any redevelopment. There's 3 outdoor bike racks that are required plus indoor bike facilities. So that's more than anywhere else, so that's an additional.
Yeah, and just an opinion, I think the certification has become standard fixture for construction, and I was looking more like solar and stuff like that, so,
We'll see, that may happen with the developer.
And is that something we can put in the plan as a consideration?
It is as a consideration. If I just follow up on that point, I understand the concern to try to go as far as possible with, LEED and environmental friendliness, but the issue is the plan also requires affordable housing. It also limits the amount of units to 25, which, quite frankly, is low for a location close to, next to a transit station with the service the half hour from Penn Station, New York. There's a lot that's being asked of prospective developers here, and this has come up in prior community meetings. At some point, it becomes too much to make the project workable from a developer's point of view. So I understand the concern. I mean, I live in Maplewood. I understand the idea of trying to make it the best as possible. We're trying to do that, but there's only so far you can push before the project, the prospective developers just walk away or don't want to bid, or will bid a much lower number.
And maybe there's a developer out there that considers that important, so I would just say look for it.
That's a fair point.
Thank you. Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having this open transparency. I love all the suggestions everybody came up with. I thought they were very valuable. I'm Stacy Brodsky, 67 Woodland Road. Thank you, Kathy. I've been living in this town for 16 years. I've been to a few of these meetings, starting 16 years ago. The one consistent question that's always been asked is about the parking. The same people come and go on the board, in the town, and the same sidestepping answers. I have yet to see you take it seriously about the parking, both from the merchants and the homeowners. There's a serious problem in this community, and mostly it's about listening and acting on what the residents and the merchants are requesting. You want to get all into the details, and everybody's got a lot of valuable information about the details. But the real answer is to bring money to the merchants for them to stay and be valuable and find value to stay in this community. The storefronts have come and gone with lots of different choices. People have not made enough money to stay as far as the merchants on Maplewood Avenue. For 16 years, they've been asking you, along with the residents of this community, to address the parking issue. Every single ideas that you guys have, whether it's moving the police station, great idea. Building more in front of the train station, great idea. What are you going to do about the serious parking issue that every time you come up with a decision, residents and merchants have one major complaint? People do not want to just walk around the town. You're bringing in 25 apartment buildings. My question is, besides my comments, is how many bedrooms are those apartments? You're bringing in more businesses. How many more merchants, employees have cars that are coming from not Maplewood Village, and not on the train that are bringing car traffic? I live on 67 Woodland Road, a 2-lane road. People who are local drive up that road and they at this point think it's a one-way, as it is. They turn around in my driveway, and when I tell them that's really not appropriate, they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought this was a one-way. I was going up the road. Now I have to turn around and go down the road." You need to listen and you need to act for all of the people in this community. I understand that you want to make it better. The first and foremost issue is the parking issue. My question now is, how many apartments, 25, will they be 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom?
The plan allows for 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms, and that is it, unless otherwise required under affordable housing regulations, which sometimes require 3-bedroom apartments, but that would be limited to 10% of the development total. So the overwhelming majority would be 1 or 2-bedroom apartments.
Okay, so having an overwhelming majority of 1 or 2-bedroom apartments, in my at last estimation, people like to live together, so that's 2 adults in a 1-bedroom. And in a 2-bedroom, that's 2 adults plus a potential teenage child that will, at some point, want to drive. That is more than 1.5 cars per apartment. Now, in a community that already has a parking issue for well over 16 years, to start channeling that down to just this property is not rational, and it's not, it has no vision. You are asking a community to believe and trust in all of you. You are showing us on several occasions, and me, I'm not no dummy, you're not resolving the fundamental issue Maplewood has. And you want us all to keep getting on board to your new, revolutionized ideas as they come. Deal with the real problem, and then you won't have all of these people coming all the time of their concerns, very politely, very organized. Resolve the parking issue so the merchants can be successful who come to this community. Resolve the parking issue so it's easy for residents to flow in and out of the community. And then you'll have carte blanche to design and create all the eco-friendly buildings that you'd like. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the Township Committee? Anyone else? Okay, we're going to close this now, and we're going to take a 5-minute break and come back and convene as the alcoholic beverage control.
And there's a meeting after that.
And then we'll continue the meeting after the alcoholic beverage control meeting. Could you hit that mic? Where's my pen now?
Yours is a bank, the one that
Yeah, where is
we
it?
got from me.
Right here. Mine is Lowe's
No,
Hotel.
it was the one before that.
Mine's Lowe's Hotel.
Right?
Okay, we are coming back on the record. We are going to now move into item number, well, I guess it's the ABC hearing, doesn't have a number. This is St. James Gate Public House Plenary Retail Consumption License Number 0711-33-003-011. Madam ABC Clerk.
Madam ABC Secretary,
Excuse me, Madam Secretary.
I'd like to call this meeting of the local ABC to order. This is going to be an ABC hearing matter in the licensee St. James Gate Public House, plenary retail consumption licensee number 0711-33-003-011. And all parties have been noticed about a hearing this evening. The licensee of record, Mr. John Mead, and I'm going to take a roll call of the local ABC, who also are Maplewood Township Committee, but you are also the local ABC. Mr. Brownlee?
Here.
Mrs. Larrier? Here. Ms. Leventhal?
Here.
Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
At this point, I'm going to turn my seat over to Mr. Desiderio to continue with the hearing.
Thank you.
Members of the local ABC, this matter comes before you in connection with a complaint that was, notice of charges that was filed by Detective Marucci on or about April 8th, 2013, and which was served on the respondent. There were 5 charges. This matter had been scheduled for a hearing some weeks ago, actually at 8 o'clock in the morning. We subsequently received notice that the matter had been resolved between the parties. Counsel, could you put your appearances on the record, please?
Annette Palmer for the state representing Maplewood.
Good evening, Robert C. Williams appearing on behalf of the licensee.
Mr. Palmer, would you give us the background and what the proposal is, please?
Certainly. Would you like factual background? Or
No,
just
no,
background of
you
the
pull the mic a little bit closer to you.
Pull the mic closer. Pull the whole bottom.
The defendant.
Still can't hear you.
Is that good?
Closer.
Can't hear you now. Is it on?
The
Is it on?
No, just pull
I
it
believe
closer.
so.
Pull it closer to you. That's it.
First time?
The licensee respondent, John J. Mead, Irish American Pub, was charged with 5 alleged violations under the Act. 3 of them were essentially documentary. The first one was for not having a full employee list available for inspection on demand on the premises, and that employee list would include a log of shifts, times worked, et cetera, et cetera. The second charge, which is also called Books 1, is he was charged with a failure to maintain his accounting books on the premises. Another charge, also documentary, was for his failing to have a license from the state that would allow him to keep his books off premises. And then there were 2 additional charges, one for having sold or served or delivered to an underage individual alcoholic beverages, and the last charge was for having served an intoxicated person. The plea agreement that we reached was the respondent licensee is pleading guilty on the first 3 charges. The statute provides a penalty schedule attached to each of those charges with progressive penalties for subsequent charges. These are first charges.
And Mr. Palmer, with regard to the last 2 charges, did your office conduct an investigation as to determining the validity of those charges and whether or not you could prove those charges?
Yes. In fact, Lieutenant Marucci conducted the initial part of the investigation, which consisted of interviewing the licensee respondent, the individual who was, at the location at the time. The Maplewood Police Department was called to the location at the time that gave rise to this investigation, as well as a number of other employees. I, along with Lieutenant Marucci, also interviewed an additional witness. This plea agreement is the result of an exhaustive and thorough investigation by the Maplewood Police Department, which was led by Lieutenant Marucci. I assisted, and the state lacks sufficient evidence that would even come close to meeting a burden of proof on the last 2 charges.
You had an opportunity to discuss this with Lieutenant Marucci?
I did, and in fact, not only does Lieutenant Marucci and the entire police department, not only are they agreeable to this plea, but I believe that they recommended it pursuant to their investigation.
Mr. Williams, you've had an opportunity to discuss this with your client?
Yes, I've had an opportunity to discuss the charges and responsibilities under Title 33 and NJAC 13, and as a result of that, we're amending our initial plea of not guilty to the first 3 counts, and we will accept the recommended penalty as proposed by the prosecutor.
And that penalty is? That's fine. It's
The
proposed.
penalty is 5 consecutive days suspension, effective July 15th through and including the 19th.
And just for the purpose of the board, the length of the penalty is determined by the state ABC and their regulations. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. At New Jersey Administrative Code, Title 13:2-1911 provides a penalty schedule and defines the violations that form the basis of these charges.
I bring that to your attention that this is basically by the schedule. Am I correct with that, Mr. Williams? Is that how that was calculated?
Yes.
The 5 days were calculated based on the schedule that's in the regs.
Yes.
Yes, right? Okay. Okay. And
I mean, they're essentially mandatory minimum penalties for first offenses with, progressive numbers of days and escalating penalties for subsequent charges.
Okay.
So we didn't make this up. We didn't agree on what the penalties would be. They're prescribed by law.
That's what I was just trying to establish. Okay. I see Mr. Mead is here. Mr. Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mead is present to my right in the front row. He has an opportunity to review the resolution, proposed resolution. He's reviewed the charges, and he agrees to my appearance before you tonight and the modification to a guilty plea.
Okay. Questions from the ABC? Mr. Brownlee?
I understand the agreement was made. I am curious about the timing. Why July 15th, just out of curiosity?
That was, there was actually no magic to it. I was drafting the resolution, and I put that in as a suggestion, and no one objected to it, so I didn't, there's no magic to it.
I was thinking, why not July 1st, but...
Well, because there is an appeal process with regard to penalization, and I wanted to give Mr. Williams an opportunity to be able to go through that appeal process before the imposition of the penalty. That's why not July 1st. I wanted to give him several weeks to be able to make that application if he so chose. Ms. Larrier.
If he's pleading, would he be appealing?
He can appeal he can seek an abatement of the penalization to a money penalty, and that's something that he's entitled to do under state statute.
That back to us, or is that to the state?
No, that goes to the state. State ABC. And once again, I wanted to give him that opportunity to make that application before the imposition of the penalty. And those are the rules.
Anything else from the ABC? All right, we need a motion to,
Let me read the resolution and...
you read the whole thing?
Yeah, I think...
Terrific.
Actually, it should be, okay. Resolution of the Maplewood Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, whereas there is pending before the Maplewood Township Alcoholic Beverage Control Board, the ABC, certain charges with regard to license number 071133003001 filed against John J. Mead Jr., an American Irish Pub Concept, Inc., trading as St. James Gate, the licensee. And whereas these charges are pending under case number 13-8796, and whereas a notice of charges was filed and served by the Maplewood Police Department on April 8, 2013, whereas the charges against the licensee are more specifically set forth on Exhibit A annexed hereto and made a part hereof, and whereas an agreement has been reached between the Township and Maplewood Police Department by and through the Township Municipal Prosecutor and the licensee, wherein the licensee has agreed to plead guilty to the following charges: A, failure to have a complete E-141 form on the premises in violation of NJAC 13:2-23.13A3. B, failure to maintain true books of account of the licensed premises, however produced within 7 days in violation of NJAC 13:2-23.32. And C, failure to have off-premises permit for the Division of Alcoholic Beverage Control in violation of NJAC 13:2-23.32. Whereas the remaining charges are to be dismissed, and whereas the licensee has consented to plead guilty to the aforementioned enumerated charges. Now therefore be it resolved by the Maplewood Alcoholic Beverage Control Board that, 1, the plea of guilty to the aforementioned enumerated charges be and hereby accepted, and 2, as a result of the violation of the above enumerated charges, the licensee's privileges to serve and dispense alcoholic beverages within the Township of Maplewood be suspended for a period of 5 days. Said suspension to begin on July 15, 2013, and to run consecutively through July 19, 2013, unless further modified by the State Division of Alcoholic Beverage Control. That is the resolution.
There's a motion to move it?
So moved.
There's a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Ms. Larrier?
No.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Okay, resolution is passed. Any other business for the board?
We moved to adjourn the ABC.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go back to the agenda of the Township Committee. We're going back to number 12, discussion items. And we're going to continue the post office redevelopment plan. The purpose of tonight was to present the plan, get input. Does anybody on the Township Committee have anything more to say about it? Mr. Greigel will make some changes based on some suggestions tonight. And we're scheduled to introduce it on first reading on July 2nd. Yes.
Just for my own clarification on what we've done before, we have addressed parking in Maplewood Village with new ordinances, et cetera, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
I cannot hear Ms. Larrier.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Nobody else can.
I'm sorry. I was just commenting that we actually have addressed parking issues in Maplewood Village recently.
Okay. So July 2nd, we'll be introducing the ordinance. Did you have a question about that or no?
No, I didn't hear you, and I wanted to
Okay.
make sure.
Oh, somebody was laughing.
Well, John's going to, Paul's going to incorporate the
Going to
comments.
make
that
a
were-
few more tightening up of the proposal. He'll get it to you, and then you'll put it in ordinance form, and we'll send it to the planning board at the same time.
So is there a resolution to send it to the planning board now?
No.
Okay.
It'll go,
So the resolution will be on for the second as...
it's
will
an ordinance.
Ordinance on introduction.
Okay, let me just, okay. I understand there's an ordinance, but there's also a resolution to send it to the planning...
Same
board.
time.
That's what my question. All right, so when we list them, we'll...
Well, let me ask you this. If you want a resolution tonight to send it to the planning board at the same time you send it to us, we can do that.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, I would move the plan be referred to the planning board after
It's
it.
been moved and seconded that it goes to the planning board simultaneous with going to the township committee.
That's fine.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay? And then we'll have an ordinance.
I'll have an ordinance to you for July 2nd on introduction, all right? And in the meantime, we'll get it to the planning board for their consideration.
And it's to be back here on July 16th.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Manning, area in need of redevelopment, we have a proposal for a study of this.
Yes, we do, from Phillips Price Greigel, our planners, dated June 13th, 2013, for the sum of $4,500. So if you would like, do it by motion, and then we can follow up.
Yep. Is there a motion to move ahead on this?
So moved.
Second.
Just if you would refresh my recollection, was there a resolution at the last meeting retaining them to do the area in need of rehabilitation?
We pulled it.
It was pulled.
Pulled it
Yes.
pending that, okay, so this,
Yeah.
okay.
So this replaces that. So it's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, then we have a report from the Women's Club Task Force.
Yeah, Mayor, this is a two-part report. I'm going to give a very brief update just to start off, and then Ms. Leventhal is going to give a detailed readout of the public information session that we held. I just wanted to report that the task force is fairly close to concluding its work. We've brainstormed, we've gathered information, we've talked to folks, we've gathered information from Public Information Forum. A lot of people have proactively reached out to us about what they would like to see and not see. So I just wanted to give the Township Committee and the public a sense of what we think next steps are. Our goal is for the task force to make a recommendation to the Township Committee at the July 16th meeting. That recommendation will be a recommendation for parameters for a request for proposal for somebody to be a property manager for the building, with detailed parameters about what we, the task force, recommend be the acceptable uses and the acceptable parameters around those uses. So we'll make that report to you. It will be the consensus of the task force, and we will seek your guidance and your direction and any modifications that you might want to make, and that will be the process, that will be the document that we use to solicit people to be the property manager, and that will direct how we think we'll want to use the building in the immediate future. Okay. So I just want to make folks aware of that. Now, Ms. Leventhal is going to give a detailed report about the very successful public information session, but I did want to, for the benefit of the Township Committee and for the public, give a quick readout on the current status of the project, because probably had about a half dozen people ask at the public information session what's going on with the building right now. The DPW is, of course, now it's a town building. The DPW is taking care of it and has essentially secured the building and is making sure that nobody's going in and out of it, et cetera. There's a series of what we described in various ways and at various times as sort of immediate term needs for stabilizing the building and making the building useful. I want to give you a rundown of what those are. About $20,000 for exterior site work, the parking lot, grading of the front walkway, a new front door platform, and making the front door handicapped accessible. About $10,000 to clean and paint and spruce up the existing women's lavatory. About $16,500 to create on the ground floor level a handicapped accessible unisex lavatory where the men's room is now. About $2,500 for patching and painting a bathroom on the second floor. $17,500 for a handicapped unisex lavatory on the second level, a new one. $10,000 worth of work on electrical outlets building-wide, just under $30,000 on plumbing and electrical work building-wide, about $4,000 to close down the dumbwaiter. There's a dumbwaiter in the building, and if we keep it open and keep it in use, we have to pay money to have it licensed and inspected and et cetera, and it's just easier to decommission it, cheaper to decommission it for the long term. Making the building-wide, making the doors appropriately locked and having push bars and safety exits where they need to be. Some work for fire separation. The stairwell as we come in the roadside door of the building needs to have some small modifications made to it for fire safety purposes. And some money for asbestos abatement, probably about $50,000. There's some additional work that was suggested by the engineer this morning. Everything that we've said to you so far is in the context of what we previously said we wanted to do, and falls within the amount of money that we previously said we wanted to spend that y'all approved. There's an additional amount of money which we think, if you would see your way clear to spend about $60,000 more for an additional improvement to be added to the list that you've already approved, we think it would be useful and worth considering. The roof, as you probably know, on the inside of the building, on the inside of the theater, a couple of panels had to be taken out and have to be replaced. And it was determined when those panels came down that there's no insulation in any of those walls. What we'd like to be able to do, what we'd like to suggest we do, is spend some money on insulating that room, blowing insulation in and replacing some of the panels that are down. That improvement will have a threefold effect. It will it'll improve the appearance generally. We have to put those panels back up. It will insulate that room and make the heating and any other potential future things that might be done in there more efficient. And it'll serve as a little bit of soundproofing. It won't be perfect, but it will improve the soundproofing characteristics of the room. The engineer thinks that job is about $60,000. We believe we have the money for it in capital funds from building improvement funds for township buildings, and the task force talked about it. We think it's a good idea. We'd like to recommend to you that in addition to the money you've already authorized, that you authorize another addition to the project to do that insulation and roof tile replacement, roof panel replacement inside.
So, Ms.
Just
Larry.
with regard to that $60,000, there's nothing that would pull work that we were planning on doing on some other building from that.
Well, it's money that we put in for general improvements as they surface. So there's nothing specifically on the horizon right at this moment, so we can use it for that.
So, we don't need to do a motion for this, do we?
Well, say that again.
We need to do we don't need to do a motion. This is within the budget.
Right.
You're just moving around.
We just wanted to report it to you that this is.
Yeah.
It wasn't on the original list of things we reported and suggested, so I just thought it was prudent to bring
Does anyone have any objection to what was prepared here? Because I really don't want to get into a precedent of having to approve all these jobs. So
No, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that we made this.
Okay. So I think we're okay to move forward with that.
And then that's all I wanted to report. I wanted to turn it over to Ms. Leventhal for her readout on the workshop.
I'd like to start by thanking especially our engineer, who played a vital role in preparing for the input session on uses of the prior women's club that we're now calling 60 Woodland. The session we had last week had up to about 50 participants. People came in and out, they asked questions, they made comments. They also completed a survey, and there were 12 items on it that 12 items that had been talked about at the task force meetings as being possibilities for the uses of the building. And we asked people to add anything that they wanted to. So I'll review the top ones and then give you a listing of what some of the suggestions were. In the top 4, we had concerts and shows, private events, which were parties, memorial services, weddings, etc., public and nonprofit events, and active youth events, indoor recreation. So those came out in the top 4 of the 12. Then the other category where suggestions came included, I'll run through the list, a children's garden, parking, designer showcases, town genealogy exhibit, remove all references to recreation, restrict any evening events, single-family or townhouse dwellings, senior center, cultural center, similar to New York City's 92nd Street Y, hydroponic greenhouse, mentorship program, and adult school. We will be including these priorities in the presentation on July 16th. I'd like to mention that the recreation for youth. We do want to include, as the community was suggesting it and the task force had discussed, recreation for youth. However, we will not be able to, because of the integrity of the building, the ceiling and the glass all around the auditorium area, we won't be able to have sports that involve a ball, for example, basketball, volleyball, etc., because it's too dangerous
We're
for
voting
the
against it,
building.
right? We're voting no ball, we're voting against it.
You're voting against it.
Seen you play basketball. So.
Archery is another example. I mean, there are just things that will possibly do quite a bit of harm to the building. So, so this was the outcome. Now, within those top 4, there's room to put some of the others, like classroom space. Could be not-for-profit classroom space, town meetings. This all can flow within these, certainly within these 4 categories, and within certain areas of the building. Again, thank our engineer, but I really thank everybody that came out, that was there and willing to, I won't say give us their 2 cents, give us their $2 worth of thinking. It was quite a smooth and I think successful event.
Great, thank you. Any comments? We'll look forward to the report on the 16th of July. Okay, that concludes our discussion items. We have a consent agenda. Can we get a motion?
I move for the adoption of the items on the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Mrs. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. This is our second public comment period. Is there anyone who would like to address the Township Committee? Seeing no one, we will close that. Reports from departments. We received the monthly report for May from our construction official, Mr. Mittelmeyer. Administrative reports, Mr. Manning.
Yes, Mayor, 3 items. Number 1 is that the farmers market is open, doing good business every Monday, 2 to 7, has a new manager. My assistant is the manager. So 2 to 7, Indiana and Springfield Avenue at the parking lot. So please shop local. Please shop our farmers market. I want to point out before you all leave, and other people too, but they're gone, Township South Side driveway is closed because we're doing work. Hope nobody got in an accident. And be careful exiting through the north side since it's both entrance and exit.
How long is it going to be for?
Oh, probably a couple more
To the weekend,
Yeah.
it said.
Oh, it did?
All weekend.
Oh, whoa.
All week? All week.
Okay, so. And lastly, if you want information on the Township of Maplewood, what we're doing, reports, etc., please visit our website, www.maplewoodnj.org. That's it, unless there are questions.
Any questions for Mr. Manning? Mr. Desiderio?
I have I have a subordination agreement on an affordable mortgage. This is a party that has is requesting that the township's mortgage be subordinated to a new first mortgage. I've reviewed all the documents. It's consistent with past determinations by the governing body, and I would recommend that it be done. And if that's the case, that the mayor sign the subordination.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Everyone knows what this is. This is our affordable housing program where we have a mortgage restriction, and then people.
And these mortgages, if they stay on the property long enough, are actually forgiven. So this is going on for a while. So.
Get my mortgage. Okay. Please call the roll.
Mr. Brownlee?
Yes.
Mrs. Larrier?
Yes.
Ms. Leventhal?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
And just as an observation, Resolution 130-13, which you passed on the consent agenda, has determined the parking fees for the Woodland Road property.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that, and at some point that will have to be codified into an ordinance, that this is really on an interim basis.
Correct.
So we get some additional feedback, I guess, so.
And we need to get DPW out there now to get signs up and get those other signs off.
Yes.
And Mrs. Fritzen has to make some type of permits available
Right.
for people, right?
Well,
Correct.
returns from vacation, which he's, right?
Once you're going to do striping and signage first?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm ready with the permits. I could do it.
Okay. Ms. Fritzen?
Okay, at the last meeting, Mr. Manning reported for me about the two special election dates, which are for the special primary, August 13th, and the special general, which is October 16th. And I know you had asked at the last meeting about how the funding would be for that, and we were advised last week at a meeting that the state will be picking up the costs of the election, of those two elections, since we have 3 elections to look forward to, those two and another one in November. You'll notice on the consent agenda tonight, we had a club license and a plenary retail distribution. They are the last of the last that you had to worry about. Everybody got their paperwork and money in, their fees in, so that's it. We got everybody finished in a timely manner before June 30th. The next meeting, Mr. Desiderio, will be at the Maplewood Police and Court Building on July 2nd, next Township Committee meeting, with air conditioning.
Please make sure that's on our website. Make sure that's very prominent on our website, both in the front page and also in the Township Committee page.
And I will say that after tonight's meeting, we have our vendor already in place to fine-tune and do a quick check with us for the recording system, since we have not gone out live since last September from there. So I did advertise the meetings. You have 2 meetings in July, potentially 2 in August and 2 in September that were noticed.
Great. Okay. Any questions for Ms. Fritzen? Reports from elected officials. Mrs. Larrier?
No report, Mayor.
Mr. Ryan?
Just one item, Mayor. You're aware that we got a report from Mr. Burbank that he feels it's going to be necessary to close Borden Park in the fall to do a little work. You may also be aware that we attempted to get a grant to do some, let's say, major surgery on that park, and that grant, we failed to get that grant, so Mr. Burbank's proposal and the current plan of record is to only do, sort of a small amount of work to ameliorate some of the damage that was done there. I think we will have a recommendation or a suggestion or a request from the Recreation Advisory Committee to try and see if we can figure out a way to do the larger remediation that needs to be done on Borden Park, and not just what Mr. Burbank's current plan is. I don't have a proposal to make right now. We need to get a little bit more data, need to talk to Mr. Burbank and to other folks, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if we were going to ask you to perhaps consider changing the scope of that project and perhaps funding it from Green Acres or something like that. But I'll give you information about that when we have a little bit more detail.
Okay.
That's what I got.
Thank you. Ms. Leventhal.
Yes, I have a few things. The Green Team is first. Mr. Manning, thank you very much for your work on submitting the Sustainable Jersey application for silver status. I'd also like to thank Bob McCoy, Tracy Woods, and Christy Ranieri. The work went rather smoothly. We have submitted 360 points, 350. Hopefully things will continue to go smoothly and we would hear in the fall. The Green Team Executive Committee has had a change. Tracy Woods is now the chairperson, Fred Profetter is the vice chairperson, and Sheila Baker Goodroll is the secretary-treasurer. I have two things to report back from the Environmental Subcommittee. The first is that in dealing with our fields, we asked Jim Herman, works on the refurbishing of our fields, to come to the meeting. And Mr. Burbank is a member of the committee. In discussions with him, we learned that there has to be a balance between environmental consciousness and playability, which really together means healthy fields. And how can we construct and refurbish our fields so that they are healthy? Mr. Herman will be presenting to the township a couple of different proposals, excuse me, all within the parameters of IPM, which is Integrated Pest Management. It's a process of lawn care designed, well, approved by the state, and people are licensed to provide this. So our fields at this point, as anyone playing on them can recognize, are compacted. There's not real grass. There's some green, but it's a lot of it is broadleaf weeds, and we're looking to make them much more viable. The work that will be done at Gordon Park is an example. So we'll have more to discuss, to bring to you in the future once we get the plan options. But the bottom line is we need healthy fields. And that will be done in the best environmentally conscious way that we can. Also, the Environmental Subcommittee looked at the electric car parking over at the train station. There are now 3 parking places there. We are recommending that those 3 places be used for electric cars, plug-in hybrids, and low-speed vehicles. So right now there's a low-speed vehicle that parks there, but we can also include electric cars like the Nissan Leaf and the Ford Focus, and plug-in hybrids like the Ford Fusion and the Toyota Prius.
C-Max too, Ford C-Max has a
Ford
plug-in.
C-Max also, okay. There's a list on a website that I'll give to the clerk's office, but it's fueleconomy.gov. It was pretty easy for me to find which vehicles, there's lots of vehicles, including the Tesla. But we do have special permit parking for people with these types of vehicles. So we need to change.
I don't know what the ordinance presently says, to
Yeah.
tell you the truth.
But let's change, let's get the change on for next meeting.
Okay, let me
Let's
look
take
at
a
it.
look at what is there and then specifically electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, and low-speed vehicles.
And then the reference to this
The website,
EPA website.
fueleconomy.gov.
Mayor, I don't think the brands were ever noted. I think that we knew what kind of vehicles through being told from Township Committee.
Well, you'll have a list. You'll have that.
It's on-
You can print out that list from the
Right,
website.
but that list was never, like, the vehicles were never named in the ordinance.
No, but we will say that the refer to that,
Right.
and that's will be, so you'll have that. Anything else?
Just to mention that the Junior League of the Oranges and Short Hills also, it wasn't mentioned tonight, but they very recently contributed $1,000 to our youth garden that's run by the Garden Club and Monica Henneman up here. They're doing good things in Maplewood. Thank you.
Mr. Brownlee.
Yes, I'm pleased to report that last evening, the 17th of June, we had our second meeting of the Maplewood Community Action Program, also known as MCAP for short. For the viewing public who might not be aware of what this initiative is about, it grew out of the concept of neighborhood watch groups in town. Some of them are very well organized, some of them are a little more loosely put together, but they're all united by the fact that they want to make their particular part of Maplewood better. And so what this initiative does is it brings together these community leaders, these representatives of these different groups, and gives them an opportunity to directly interact with representatives of the departments that make up Maplewood. And it gives them an opportunity to hear information directly from them, and also gives them an opportunity to give feedback to those people as well, so that they can kind of talk about how the things that are being done at the township committee level affect their particular parts of town. So it's sort of a fruitful dialogue and interchange between the residents and the township department representatives directly. To a person, all of the people who attended the meeting felt that this was it was great to have the opportunity to be able to do that. These meetings are held quarterly, and the first meeting was held in April. The people who we had at this meeting were the Chief of Police, Chief Semino, and the head of the engineering department, Thomas Malavasi. And again, the interchange that happened between them and the residents was very fruitful. We do emphasize in the meeting that it is a working meeting, meaning that it isn't simply something where the people who are in attendance at the room benefit from hearing that information, but we also say that it's incumbent upon them to talk to their neighbors, talk to their friends, and share the information that they heard in these meetings. And it was interesting to hear some of the people in the meeting talk about the fact that when they went out and told their neighbor about something, they got something else and brought that to the next meeting. So again, we feel that this is a great start. We are looking to continue to expand the program, so we are going to be reaching out to community leaders in other parts of town as well. The intention is that all the geographical areas of town are covered, if you would, ultimately. If you are a community leader who hasn't been reached out to, and you are listening to this, you can please go to our township website, maplewoodnj.org, and you can click through and find my email and send me an email and let me know, which group you're representing and the fact that you'd like to come to these meetings. We are looking to have the next meeting in September. The exact date to be announced, but once we make that announcement, we hope to have a even greater turnout next time. So again, I just wanted to report on that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one item. Thursday night, the 20th of June, the Hilton Neighborhood Association is celebrating its 18th anniversary. And their flyer, I had nothing to do with this flyer, but it says, join us in celebrating 18 years of engaging the Maplewood community.
And you're the speaker.
And funny enough, there's going to be a terrific speaker there, me, the first president of the association,
Very
plus
engaging.
Amy Jo Curran, the executive director of the HK project. So that's at 7:30 at the community center.
You're a very
in Dealey
engaging
Park.
speaker. Yes.
Okay, we're going to
Move to adjourn.
move to adjourn, and we're going to meet on July 2nd at the Police Court Building, 1618 Springfield Avenue. Is there a second on the adjournment?
Yes, there is a
No,
second.
you did the first.
Can I second it as well?
Second.
Say, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank
Turn that
you.
off, India, would you? Thank you.
I don't.